ERA approved budget 21-23. Directions for how to testify were published on the ERA agenda. I opened the public hearing at 6:01 p.m. I now call for the staff report.
Good evening. We had we have an approved ERA budget that we are asking the ERA board to adopt tonight. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the ERA board to adopt tonight. Sorry, I was getting a little confused there. There really are no changes from what was approved in budget committee.
Okay.
I am open to any questions if you have any.
Okay. Any members have any question for Gina?
Close the hearing.
Yes, Councilor Olson?
Yes. In the resolution, I'd like to ask what the $495,900 of special payments are for.
Because ERA is a component unit of the city, has its own budget, has its own financial papers, that would normally be called a transfer. But because it is a component unit, we have to call it special payments. It came up a couple years ago in one of our audits, and the auditor suggested we change that language on our resolutions. Basically, that is the money that CARA is paying into economic development, into the economic development activities program.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
And
Yes.
Oh,
that's for
sorry,
the
go ahead.
2 year. That's for the
Counselor.
2 year period, I guess.
Correct, that's for the biennium.
Okay. So economic development. Well, what is CARA doing in terms of economic development?
So Seth may be able to speak to this a little bit
Yeah.
more, but the staff that is in economic development also provides services to CARA. It is a little difficult to have them in both programs, so it's easier to just track the economic development staff in economic development and then bring in a transfer or a special payment from the CARA Urban Renewal District or the TIF district to help pay for their services, for the services that they provide to CARA.
And Gina, I just add that that was based on the original CARA plan where the agency itself doesn't have staff, but it has an agreement with the city to use its staff to do the business of the ARA and the CARA district.
In other words, that's paying city staff.
Correct.
How many staff does that include?
That is 2 staff members.
Okay, so my question is we talked about during the budget cycle about $300,000 of transit lodging taxes or for economic development. Now we're talking about $495,000. How expensive is this staff?
I can pull that up for you.
I mean, that's almost $1 million. It's almost $900,000.
Well, this is for the biennium. It's not that's not annual.
But that's what I'm saying. Over 2 years, that's almost $1 million. Because on the budget committee, we talked about this. I brought it up. It was 300 and something thousand. Now we're looking at 490,000 for 2 years. That's almost $800,000 over a 2 year period.
May I interrupt Chair Johnson for a moment, please?
sure,
Since-
Mary.
Since the council is beginning to deliberate, can I ask you to please go ahead and close the public hearing, and I'll report that there were no written comments and no one signed up to speak. So we just need you to close the public hearing, please. And
Okay,
then-
thank you. I just noticed that, and as soon as they were done talking, okay, yes. So hearing the staff report, there was no written materials submitted and there's no one registered to speak. So I will close the public hearing at 6:06 p.m. Now we can discuss the from the members. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
You bet. Okay. Any other
Mayor Johnson,
questions?
I'm
Yeah.
happy to let Gina dig in on the numbers a little bit, but this is the mechanics of it. It's actually not as high as what you're thinking because The transfer comes from Kara into the economic development budget. And that covers 75% of the cost of all staff, which is actually 2.5 FTE. And it's also counted as revenue. When you look at the economic development budget, the transfer from Kara is counted as a revenue source. So it's not in addition to what we talked about. It's actually the bulk of wages, salaries, and benefits that we discussed earlier.
I am looking up that information. For some reason, it's just a little slow tonight.
Okay. Could we defer? Does anyone else have any other questions? Then we'll get back to Gina.
Marilyn's got her hand up.
I'm sorry, I can't see the hands, so please tell me. Who is?
It's me.
Okay, Marilyn, yes.
It's a related question. Is that line item is not exclusively salaries and benefits, is it? Does it include money for some other purposes?
Yeah, so that's Kara's portion of all materials, it's central services, it's training, it's all of those things combined to the tune of 75% of the total cost.
Okay,
Thank you.
that makes sense. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes,
Okay, yes, Counselor Novak.
in regard to that, again, though, in response to what Seth Sherry just said, this is still specific to 2.5 full-time employees.
Yes, that's what he said.
I agree with the mayor that that's seems like an awfully high number.
So the total for wages and benefits for that program over the biennium is $646,000.
Okay, that's for both years.
That's for
so
both years,
It'll be like 300 a year then. Okay.
roughly.
Mm-hmm. All right. Does that answer your question, Mayor?
No, it raises more questions. So 225 people, $323,000 roughly for 1 year. That doesn't that seem high to anybody?
It does to me.
Like to add in some information here. It's
Oh,
actually
yes, please.
It's actually 4 people. It's 2.2. You're going to get 10% of the CD director. You're going to get 10% of an admin staff, and then 75%. Excuse me, a full percent or full 100% of Seth and Sophie, and then they take 75% of that and distribute that to Kara. So
Excuse me,
there's
what is
actually
a CD director? Pardon me for interrupting.
a community development director, so that's going to be Matthew Rickers.
I appreciate that clarification.
Okay. And that includes everything, just like any other FTE, it'd include salary, benefits, anything that goes along with it, I would assume.
Correct, and that totals to that 600,000 number that Gina came up with.
Okay, all right. Thank you, JC. Okay. Any other questions or concerns?
I have one, please.
Okay,
One more.
sure, Councilor Novak.
And I'm trusting this is the appropriate time to ask about something that Councillor Kopczynski had mentioned the other day. So I would like clarification about the ADA and AVA payment being on actuals without a cap.
Okay, this is the ARA, and I don't
This is the
believe it
meeting.
would have.
Am I in the
it
wrong
would-
place? Okay.
Yeah, that would be in the next budget meeting.
Thank
Yeah.
you kindly. I
Oh,
apologize.
that's all right. I understand totally. Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Okay, so I guess now would a member like to make a motion?
I move we approve the resolution adopting the Albany Revitalization Agency ARA budget for biennium 2021 to 2023.
I'll
Yeah.
second that.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Hi.
All those opposed? Okay, so the Albany Revitalization Agency budget for the biennium 2021-23 is passed.
And thank you, since I heard no nos, that will be a 7-0 vote. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mary. Thank you. Okay, now, Seth had written me earlier and he wanted to discuss about the CARA loans and the program that we have had and maybe considering to do it again. So Seth, could you discuss that a little bit for me, please?
Sure, Chair Johnson, thank you.
Thanks.
I know it's a long night, so I'm going to be quick here. And if it's not enough for you, we can talk about this more another time. But we don't have much business for the ARA or CARA for a regularly scheduled June meeting. So I thought if we could just take care of this now, that'd be beneficial for everybody. I wanted to bring back to you, we discussed there was interest in continuing the loan forbearance program that was enacted last year for all outstanding of the 7 or so ARA loans within the CARA district. There was quite a bit of discussion on that last time. And I think where we ended up, if I understood correctly, was the unanimous desire was to continue offering loan forbearance for those who self-elected to take advantage of that through May of 2022, which is next May. There had been some discussion about trying to meet certain metrics that demonstrated need. However, over the last year, it was based on self-electing, and only one of the 7 took advantage of that. And I think we talked about some of the pros and cons of creating a metric versus just continuing what was highly successful this last year. So if the desire of this board is continue on what's already been done twice, you just need to make a motion to continue the ARA COVID loan forbearance program. Vote on that, and then we'll take care of the rest in terms of notifying those who have loans and letting them take advantage of this if they'd like to.
Okay, great. All right.
That's it, Bessie.
Thank you, Seth. Okay, does anyone have any questions on that?
Yes, do I need to recuse myself?
I guess probably it would. I don't think that.
That would be the appropriate thing to do, Council Novak.
Okay.
I shall do that straight away.
Thank you, Councilor Novak. I appreciate that. Okay, any questions then?
No, I'll make a motion to approve the loan forbearance continuation of the loan forbearance program for 2022.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue the loan program. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. Okay, so it would be a 6 yeas and 1 abstaining, recusing. So, all right, great. Let's see. Does anyone on the agency have any items they want to bring up at this time? Nope. Okay, hearing none. The next meeting is Wednesday. Oh, no, it's not. Seth just said we're not going to have one, so never mind. So I now adjourn this meeting, and why don't we take 5 minutes for everybody to get on? Is that okay? And then we'll start the council meeting, or do you want to just start it, Mayor?
Let's take 5 minutes, and then
Yeah.
I'll be back here in 5 minutes.
Okay,
Yeah,
sounds
we
great.
don't have to close down and restart, do we?
No,
Stay on.
no. Great. Yeah, that's great. All
We
right.
have State Councilor Bartholomew. She's still not back.
Okay.
There she is. So good evening. Is Matt ready?
Yeah, you're fine. Ready to go.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Albany City Council meeting on Wednesday, June 9th, 2021. We're starting a little late because we had the ARA meeting beforehand. I'd like to call the meeting to order and the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance
Pledge
to the
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Thank you. Counselor Olson,
Here,
Counselor Novak,
Here.
Counselor Bartholomew,
Here.
Counselor Kopsinski,
Here,
Counselor Johnson,
Here.
Counselor Smith,
Here.
Mayor Johnson II.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. Next on tonight's agenda is the public hearing for the adoption of 2022 through 2026 Capital Improvement Program. Directions for how to testify and submit written materials were published on the City Council agenda. I open the public hearing at 6:20 p.m. There was no written material submitted. No one signed up to speak. I hereby close the public hearing at 6:21 p.m. Does staff have a report?
Yeah, I just have a quick report, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you tonight is a resolution to adopt the 22-26 capital improvement program. The preparation of the CIP is a long process that starts early in the fiscal year and coincides with the budget process. During the process, input is received from various city departments, the City Council, Budget Committee, Planning Commission, and the public. After the April 6th joint work session, the CIP final draft was made available for public review and May.
Excuse me, Jeff.
Received this year.
Jeff, we have an audio issue.
yeah, he's,
It sounds like
I can give his production. Jeff, I'll go ahead and try to repeat what you're saying. You got some feedback on your
Yes.
here. Can you mute yourself?
yes,
Thank
you're,
you.
you're much better.
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
Here.
Well,
You need some kind of a sound
apologize.
booth there to,
sometimes these new computers are a little tricky. So essentially what Jeff was saying is that this is the 2022 through 2026 capital improvement program. We've had, it's a long process. It took many months with input from all of the departments in the city. And we, if you'll remember, we had here a meeting with the budget committee, city council, planning committee to discuss the CIP. Hopefully you all remember that. We haven't received any significant input, so the final document was provided for you, and we're happy to take any questions if you might have them.
Council, do you have any questions for Director Bailey? It looks like I don't see any hands. Would the council like to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion to adopt the resolution calling for the adoption of the 22 to 26 capital improvement program.
second.
Got a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Seeing none, motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, the next is the state shared revenue public hearing. On pages 6 and 8, Director Yeager is going to be speaking about that. Next on the night's agenda are 2 public hearings for state shared revenues, declaring eligibility to receive state shared revenues and electing to receive state shared revenues. Directions for how to testify and submit written materials were published on the City Council agenda. At this time, 6:23 p.m., I open the public hearing. There was no written material submitted and no one signed up to speak. I therefore close the public hearing at 6:23 in a few seconds. Does the staff have a report, Director Yeager?
We are just asking that council, through resolution, approves state shared revenues to receive them and also to certify that we're eligible to receive them. It's two separate resolutions, but we do this every year and the money goes towards our transit system.
Council, any discussion?
One question.
Go ahead, Councilor Novak.
Thank you. Am I understanding correctly that our transit system consists of the Albany buses and also the LBCC loop? There's nothing beyond that in our transit system, is there? Am I missing anything?
Mayor, I can answer that.
Please do.
Councilor Novak, you're right. So there's the Albany Transit System, the Limbit and Loop, but we also have the Coloride program, which is our complimentary transit program.
Oh, the dial-a-ride program, you mean?
Yes, we call it Coloride here in Benton County. It's called Dial-a-Bus, so
Okay.
different things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it consists of three separate entities,
Programs, yes.
sort of programs in them. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other discussion? Thank you, Director. Any other discussion? Would the council like to make a motion?
I move we approve the resolution declaring the city's eligibility to receive state revenues.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Seeing none, motion passes.
I move we approve the resolution declaring the city's election to receive state revenues.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, council. Thank you, director. I close the public hearing at, let's see, we go up here, make sure I got the right one. Yep, I close the public hearing at 18:25. Next one is Planning Division fee adjustments by Matthew Rutgers. Did I miss something? No, I didn't. Okay.
No, you didn't miss anything. You'd already closed the public hearing, so that wasn't necessary, but you were ready to start with planning division fee adjustments with Matthew Records.
Thank you very much. Next on tonight's agenda is a public hearing for Planning Division fee adjustments. Directions on how to testify and submit written materials were published on the City Council agenda. I open the public hearing at 6:26 p.m. Seeing that there's no written material submitted and one signed up to speak, I close the public hearing, and no one signed up to speak. I close the public hearing at, come on, clock. At 6:27 p.m. Does the staff have a report for us?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this is our just annual inflationary adjustments to planning fees based on the CPIW, so the Consumer Price Index. There's additional information that's been provided by staff in the memo. This is our standard annual adjustment. Available if anyone has any questions.
I didn't have any questions. Council, do you have any questions or discussion for Matthew?
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Johnson. I just wanted to say, I wondered, is 4.77% increase across the board? Is that correct? That's the CPIW. Is that correct?
Correct. Well, our adjustment this year is 4.77. That's actually, we normally do these adjustments every year. In 2020, the increase was actually negligible, so we did not take an adjustment in 2020. So this adjustment of 4.77 takes into account the very small increase over the 2020 period, includes the 2021 period, which is how we end up with 4.77, and that is across the board for planning fees.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Councilor Novak.
Yes, sir. I just would like some clarification. This 4.77, is that for the whole of the next biennium or just the year 2021? I just need to make sure I'm tracking.
So typically we do the adjustments every year based on the consumer price index. So just like what we've seen with, or actually on the agenda, other items tonight, this is an annual adjustment that we do to keep up with the consumer price index.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Novak. Any other councilors have any questions or comments?
I do. So we'll consider this in a year from now. Consider another rise, and if there's inflation in the present year.
Correct. Yeah, next year about this time, depending on what the consumer price index or CPIW is doing, we will consider an additional adjustment. It's something that we look at every year.
Thank you.
I see Councilor Novak peaked again. Go ahead, Councilor.
Yeah, I put my hand up again. So if inflation rises at 3%, but the consumer price index rises higher than that, then you raise to match the consumer price index rather than the price of inflation, and the other way around as well. Do you always go with the higher number?
So we use the CPIW, which is the Bureau of Labor and Statistics Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers. You know, the planning fees are based on staff time that it takes to do these applications. It's not a full cost recovery, but it's one that we've settled on, and we adjust those, like say, annually based on the index.
Yeah.
Councilor Olson?
Yeah, this is a good illustration as to why we're not keeping up with enough money to run our city. Is the inflationary cost is almost 5%, and by law we can only increase our property values for tax purposes at 3%. So we continue to lose out when there's this kind of inflation.
Thank you, Councilor Olson. Any other comments? Okay, would a councilor like to make a motion?
I would move that we adopt a resolution setting fees and charges for development code provisions and repealing resolution number 6947, a resolution setting fees and charges for development code provisions and repealing resolution numbers 6850 and 6813.
Second.
So we're gonna do all three. So all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign.
Forgive me, I'm still not entirely clear, so I don't know if I'm in favor or I oppose. My question would also be, if for any reason the costs go down, would the rate of these fees that are in place also go down? The cost of doing business, as it were?
So if the Councilor Novak, if the question is next year, if we got to this point and the CPI or the cost consumer price index actually went negative, would we reduce our fees? Likely not, just because, like say, we are not at a full cost recovery model right now.
Okay.
So we would actually be losing ground if we did that, even if the CPI was a negative.
So we had a vote. Thank you very much. We had a vote. So
May I do a roll call vote, please?
yes, you may, please.
There is a motion on the floor to adopt the resolution. Councilor Olson,
Yes.
Novak,
You're muted.
My apologies. Yes.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
Kopsinski,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Thank you. That's 6-0.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next, utility rate adjustments for 2021 through 2022. Director Bailey on pages will be speaking to us, pages 13 through 44. Next on tonight's agenda, the public hearing for utility rate adjustments for fiscal year 2021 and 2022. Directions for how to testify and submit written materials were published on this council agenda. I open the public hearing time at 6:33 p.m. We did not receive any materials or no one signed up to speak. So therefore I close the public hearing at 6:33 PM and seconds, a few seconds. Does the staff have a report?
Yes, Mayor, Council, thank you. This is our annual rate adjustment for water, sewer, and stormwater rates. I gave a presentation to the council back in April that was very long about the rate adjustments, and I can go over some of that information again if you'd like. If not, the information is included in your packet. Just as a verbal reminder for those who are maybe on the call who don't have the information, this is a 3.5% recommended increase for sewer, 3.5% recommended increase for water, and 17% recommended increase for stormwater, which, as we discussed, while it's a large percentage, it's based on a relatively small starting number, so doesn't work out to be as much dollar-wise as the others. I'm happy to take any questions you may have or show any slides if you would like any refresher from the earlier presentation.
Councilor Novak, Councilor Johnson. So Councilor Novak.
Thank you.
first, Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. I wanted to make you all aware of the fact that I have heard from at least one constituent who doesn't have a water meter who takes issue with these charges. She said she received her first utility bill when we initially implemented the stormwater fee, and she's not getting that service. So I agree with her. That doesn't seem right to me, that anyone who isn't even connected to our water service would be paying for such a service that they're not receiving. Is there anything we can do about that?
Councilor Novak, it sounds like she's receiving a utility bill for stormwater only. So if she doesn't have a water meter, then she would not be getting a water bill. And it sounds like her first, if I'm understanding correctly, her first bill came after the stormwater utility was initiated a few years ago. Is that correct?
That's what I'm understanding. Yes.
Sure. So I'm happy to talk to her if you'd like. Essentially, the stormwater utility does provide a service to everyone in the community. And some examples of that would be part of the fee is used to maintain the stormwater system, which keeps the roads from flooding when it rains. We pay for utility work to clean out culverts and ditches. We pay for, of course, we pay for permit compliance, which is an obligation of the entire community. And we pay for services such as land use development review when properties are developed to ensure that stormwater is managed appropriately. So while there were a number of people who for the first time received a city utility bill with the stormwater utility, and we did have those types of questions, I'm happy to talk with her again, but everyone in the community, every developed property in the community is assessed a part of the stormwater utility because everyone in the community benefits from it.
Director Bailey, thank you. Again,
Thank
it
you.
always helps me when you clarify, and I trust if this individual is listening in, that she will at least see that there's a reason behind it, because we need to hear that. We need to know. Thank you.
As I said, if she contacts you again, please feel free to send her my way.
Thank you.
Okay, so I read this correctly, Director Bailey. Oh, sorry, Councilor Johnson, you're next.
Yeah, two things to piggyback on that. Apparently this constituent must have septic. Is that correct? Because I don't have a water meter, and because I'm on a well, and I still get the bill.
Sure. Yeah, if you're connected to city sewer, Councilor Johnson, then you'll get a sewer bill. And there are customers in the city who either don't have city water or city sewer, or both. So that is a possibility for sure.
Okay. Normally with a septic tank, because you wouldn't use it then. Okay. And the second thing is I've had quite a few people contact me. If you could just explain very clearly, which you have already, The stormwater, 17%, they says, oh my God, 17%. But it's like it's $1, but it's only like 17 cents on $1. So if you could just kind of say that so people
Sure.
watching will know. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, this is the risk of talking about percentage increases versus actual increases. The stormwater rate started very low. Council will remember we started with as low a rate as we could to replace the money that was being spent on stormwater from other utilities. And so whenever you increase a low dollar amount, it ends up being a higher percentage. So the current rate, monthly rate for the single family residential customer, average single family residential customer in stormwater is $10.18. The increase, 17% increase, would take that up to $11.91. So it's about $1.80 or so increase. If my math is correct, which we all know may or may not be correct. So it's less than $2 increase for 17%. That compares to the water or sewer bills, which are much more established utilities, and the 3.5% increase in one of those bills would be more than $2 a month. So even though the percentage is quite a bit lower, the actual dollar increase is relatively the same for each utility.
Great. Thank you, Chris. I think it was just worth saying it again so people can understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bailey. Is there any other questions from council? Okay, councilors can make separate decisions. Would the council like to make a motion on each individual, or like to do a motion on all three? Go ahead, Mary.
Oh, I look like Ray was trying to say something and he's muted.
Oh, he's muted, Ray. You were muted, Ray.
I would suggest all three if we can, if it's allowable.
It's allowable.
That is allowed.
Is there a motion to approve all three?
Move that we adopt the resolutions for all three as presented.
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. So it looks like the motion passes 6-0. The motions pass, the resolutions pass 6-0.
Thank you.
Okay, next up on the calendar is Public Works fee adjustments for fiscal year 2021. Rob Emmons will be speaking to us. So next on the agenda, public hearing for adjustments for Public Works fees for fiscal year 2021 and 2022. Directions to how to testify and submit written materials were published on the City Council agenda. I open the public hearing time at 6:41 p.m.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson.
Let me finish.
Oh, sorry.
There were no written materials. I don't want Mary to get upset with me. There were no written materials as submitted, or no one signed up to speak on the matter. I close the public hearing time at 18:41 and 50-some seconds. Does the staff have a report? Rob?
Yes, now I do. Okay, thanks, Mayor Johnson. So tonight we're considering the annual adjustments for Public Works fees. I won't go into a lot of detail since just a couple of weeks ago we discussed this in more detail at the City Council work session on the 24th of May. However, for the record, I do want to state that the Public Works fees consist of the system development charges for Public Works, which are water, wastewater, and transportation, and also consist of the city utility connection charges, which includes the post-construction stormwater quality fee. So this year during the public hearing, we are considering inflationary increases. That increase is 6.62%, and that's based on the Engineering News Record Construction Cost Index. And also, we are considering the second phase-in step for the adjusted allowable water and wastewater SDCs. So both those are included in the resolution that you're considering tonight. So with that, I can answer any questions.
Council, thank you very much.
Mhm.
Council, any discussion? Councilor Novak,
I don't have anything.
the camera's off.
My apologies. My camera goes away every time I try to look at documentation for the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for letting us know that.
Mine is too.
Does anyone have any discussion, council? Okay. Would the council like to make a motion? You can do it individually or the whole batch.
I would move that we adopt the resolution revising water system charges and I guess just all the water system development charges. I don't know how else to put it to get all three of them in there.
Well, there's more than three, there's 8.
Oh,
Yes, you're asking specifically for this SDC charges, items 1 through 3? Or are
Yes,
you
that's-
referring to all of the resolutions, item 1 through 8?
well, I would go 1 through 8 if we can do it all at one time.
You can.
All right, thank you. That's my plan.
Second.
Those
So
in
the
favor
motion
say,
on the floor is to approve all the resolutions 1 through 8, and it's been motioned and seconded. So you just need to vote. Thank you.
those in
Thank
favor
you,
say
Mayor.
aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Mary. Bill Case is calling me again. Adoption of the next
Your
one.
Honor, could I comment on the SDCs?
Yes.
Well, we've been told that the SDCs are a hindrance to providing lower cost housing. And I tend to agree with that. And I would like to ask, and I think it's been asked before, and I'd like to ask it again, is there some way we can have graduated SDCs for smaller houses to have lower SDCs and McMansions to have a higher SDC? I think it's one of the reasons why we have a hard time providing affordable housing. And can the staff comment on that? Is that impossible? Or is it difficult? Or is it something we can consider?
I can speak to that, Mr. Mayor Johnson. That's a great question, and staff has been working and investigating that very issue. In fact, the June 21st work session, I am going to present a memo that outlines a process we're going to undertake this summer, where we're going to look at that very issue, look to see if system development charges the methodologies can be adjusted to accommodate smaller homes versus larger homes. So that's one of the issues we're going to be looking into.
Okay, well, I'm certainly glad to hear that. And the other question I have is if I build an ADU in my backyard, which I don't plan to do, would I have to pay SDCs on that ADU, auxiliary dwelling unit? If I convert my garage to some sort of a shack?
If you are making an additional connection to the city utility systems, then you would. So it's not a cut and dried yes or no. It really depends on if there's an additional water meter being placed or an additional sewer service being placed. If there's an additional impact to the utility system, then an SDC would reflect that.
So could I run a pipe from my water meter out to the ADU and get around paying a water bill? Well, I'd pay a water bill, but I wouldn't have to pay the SDC then, would I?
Just not, well, let me show that.
Counselor Olson, if you come in for the appropriate permits, then that would be worked out as part of that process. Typically, if you're adding another actual residential unit, then you would have to pay the calculated SDCs. If you're just converting your attic for a family room or something like that, then that would likely not qualify for any of those charges. So it depends, but in general, if the purpose of SDC is if you're adding usage to the system, then you have to pay your fair share of the system. And that's how the SDCs are sort of evaluated conceptually.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bailey. Any other comments from the council? So we had a motion and a second, and it did pass. So next.
I do, forgive me for interrupting, sir. I do have a comment as well
ahead.
with regard to what Councillor Olson said. I also, my understanding is that SDCs do add, they do make it more expensive to, for instance, if you wanted to put your children who can't afford a home in a little garage apartment or something, then those fees could be prohibitive to doing that, which is a form of less expensive housing. So I understand about, if you were adding a new service to, if there was no sewer there and if they had to bring in sewer service, I guess where I kind of am a little bit, what's the word? Not leery, but where I just a little bit take issue with the SDC thing is if at my house, I already have sewer service because I have bathrooms and I wanted to do something in an upstairs portion of my house, for instance, and turn it into a little apartment for, a family member or someone that I was wanting to help, then I already have sewer service. Why I would be charged for that, or anybody would?
Director Bailey just stated that it maybe has to be looked at for eligibility for SDCs.
Yeah,
Right.
Council back. So each proposal is evaluated on its own, and Matthew is really a better expert at this than I am. But essentially, if you're adding another dwelling unit, is the same as adding an apartment. Then there would be an additional burden on the system. I don't know if Matthew wants to add more.
So yeah,
I guess
I'm more than willing to jump in here. So that essentially, if somebody, it is kind of a case by case basis, but generally speaking, if somebody were to add an ADU, whether it be attached or detached, they're going to have to pay a transportation SDC because of the additional trips that's generated by an additional living unit. They will also pay a sanitary sewer SDC because of the additional load onto our system. The option on water is if they, typically how we've looked at those is if there is a water service at the property already, they can actually connect on the backside of that meter. So they're basically, we're going to capture the usage through that water meter for the additional unit, and they would not be charged an additional SDC for water. Some folks who've done ADUs have chose to pay the water SDC because they'd like to have a separate meter for that. Say if they're going to be renting out the ADU, they want to be able to keep that water usage separate. So they'll pay the SDC because they want another water meter. Hopefully that helps answer some of the questions.
It does help. I guess I just share the concern that these things can be a hindrance to developing more affordable housing. That's my only point. I understand. I see both sides of that.
Thank you. Peter Trout, Councilor, City Manager has a comment.
Thank you, Mayor. We're going to have a great discussion or opportunity for discussion when Rob Emmons presents on the 21st. But I wanted to make it clear that SDCs affect the cost of building residences, whereas the cost of the residence itself is determined by market rates. Those are not always they're not connected. So if the market is a hot market, you're going to pay a lot of money for that unit, whatever it is. And it really doesn't matter what the SDC is. I guess where it comes into real play is when you talk about incentivizing builders to build at one end of the spectrum or another, then they do have a factor.
Okay, thank you, Peter. So we had a motion second, motion passed. I'm moving on to the next agenda item. So Councilor, if we have discussion before, please do make we have the discussion before we vote on it. So we spent, 5, 10 minutes going over after we approved it. So let's try to get that discussion done before we actually take the vote. I appreciate it. Next on the agenda is adoption of the 2021-2023 biennial budget by Director Yeager on pages 75 and 83 of your packet. Next on tonight's agenda is a public hearing for the adoption of the 2021-2023 biennial budget. Directions on how to testify and submit written materials were published in the City Council packet. I open the public hearing time at 6:53 p.m. And so I did receive no information from city, from anyone. There was no written material submitted and no one signed up to speak on the matter. I closed the public hearing at 6:54. Do I have a staff report?
We are just asking that council approve by resolution the adoption of the 2021-2023 biennial budget. The other information is in the memo, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I see Councilor. Thank you very much, Director Yeager. Councilor Novak has a question or a comment.
Yes, please. With regard to written materials being submitted, I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention information that was submitted to us all by a Mr. David Shaw this morning at 3:17 a.m. I'm not entirely sure why that's not considered written information with regard to the budget. Can someone enlighten me?
Mary, did you receive that document?
The process to submit the written material was published in the newspaper and published on the agenda. There was 2 ways to do that. They could have contacted the city clerk at my email or the finance director at their email. The deadline was today at noon. If this came at 3 a.m., it did not go through those 2 channels. It needs to come to the city clerk email address or the finance director address. And as I said, both of those, they were published in the newspaper, posted around in the various places and on the agenda. So I'm sorry that did not get in, but we have to have some way to capture it all. And
Understood.
that particular piece didn't get in. There was none that was received through those 2 venues.
Thank you. Councilors, your discussion?
Hello.
Bill, not yet, Bill. Give me a few minutes. We're not there yet. Councilor Novak, you still have questions?
I'm sorry, I need to lower my hand at the moment, I guess, if I have it still up.
Council?
No,
I
nothing.
move that be it resolved that the Albany City Council hereby adopts budget notice.
Councilor Smith was first. She had a question.
Sorry.
I have no question, but a comment. I just wanted to remind the council that the budget as presented here was approved by the full budget committee earlier in May. It was a unanimous vote.
Good point.
Now my hand is up.
Councilor Novak?
Yes, sir. I just want to say this for the record, please. I was one of those who voted to pass the budget back when it was brought to our attention, but at that time, I was not aware that the appointees that we put on the budget committee were not given an opportunity to meet. It was my understanding and my hope and expectation that the people that we appointed to the budget committee would be able to meet and review the budget and look for inefficiencies, redundancies, find ways that we could save money. I just was very, very shocked when the gentleman that I appointed to the budget committee made it known to me that they were never given an opportunity to meet. He had asked about dates for meetings and was not given any dates to meet. The first time they met was when we met all together. And I would submit to you, my friends, with all due respect, this is not transparent. It to me, it feels as if we're handed something with that wasn't even reviewed. And I understand about trust, but I'm in the camp of trust but verify. And I'm not saying that anyone's doing anything untoward. All I'm saying is, to me, in a right and just world, we would have an opportunity to review the budget. And Mr. Shaw made suggestions, which I believe, and others besides Mr. Shaw, but the reason I mention him specifically is because, as he pointed out, he was a finance man professionally for over 40 years. I think he makes some very
Councilman
worthy
Novak,
points. Yes, sir?
You can bring that up during business from the council.
Oh, not now, even though, so it's not germane to the budget, sir?
Well, because the budget's been like Councilor Smith said, has been voted and approved. If you have additional issues, you can bring it to that business from the council.
But, okay, so, all right, I need to have understanding, because again, my first go around. We're going to vote on it, and my only option, if I take any issue at all, is to vote against it. Is that the case, sir?
Yes, I believe so. Councilor, let me get Peter's comment, and then we'll come back. Go ahead,
Thank
Peter.
you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted, for the record, I wanted to point out that there is no, and I think we explained this last time, that there is no way that the 7 lay members of the Budget Committee can meet separately. That the state law calls for a Budget Committee, but the Budget Committee is 14 members in our case. In a city with 5 councilors, it's 10. But in our case, it's 14. It includes 7 lay members and 7 councilors. And when they meet together. There is no provision in state law for 7 lay people to get together for any other purpose. Having said that, what I have tried to do is make sure that every member of the Budget Committee feels free to call me or to call Gina or to ask any questions by email or phone that they have. It's a very, very transparent process, and there's nothing that is not available to them. So it's a matter, I think what Councilor Novak is frustrated by is a matter of law. If she had been under the impression that the 7 lay people, the 7 lay members would get together on their own, that was unfortunately a misunderstanding, and that can't happen. And that, again, that's state law that governs that.
Did that answer your question, Councilor Novak? So like I mentioned to you, that would be a legislative change we'd have to make at the state level.
I guess I misunderstood based on the fact that all my other appointees are on committees that meet separately. So there is that. Then we had talked about a pre-meeting to discuss because we didn't discuss it before. I guess I'm just at a loss with even the 14 of us getting together and seeing it and right away making a decision without reviewing it. I know it had been reviewed for us, but the process to me leaves something to be desired.
Peter?
Thanks again, Mayor. And Councilor Novak, if you would think of this methodology as akin to how a corporation would work, that you are the board of directors and your CEO and your finance director, CFO submit a budget to you based on guidance that they've received from the board of directors. The board of directors doesn't look at how many dollars you spent on bulletproof vests. They look at whether or not you're making progress towards the goals in your strategic plan. So anybody that's interested, like you mentioned, Mr. Shaw, I would welcome their calls and their emails, and Gina would as well. And we'd be happy to explain all of the intricacies and the nuances of the budget. And that's not restricted to budget committee members. That's anybody, really.
Right. Thank you, Peter. So is your hand still up, Councilor Novak? Okay, thank you. We had a motion, I believe, Councilor.
I started to read it. I guess I'll read it. Be it resolved that the Albany City Council hereby adopts BN 2021 to 23 budget as approved by the Budget Committee on May 6, 2021, with changes within the limits allowed under ORS 294.456 in the aggregate sum of $350,313,900, excluding reserves for future expenditures in the Building Inspection Fund and the unappropriated amounts in the permanent funds as shown below. The total City of Albany budget, including reserves, is $352,256,500.
So we had a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded, yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign.
No,
You said no?
I did.
You have one opposed?
Yes, that vote then is 1 opposed and 5 yes, so that passes.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is business from the public. So Bill, give me just a minute and I'll go ahead and read my script and we can get to your There's one person speaking before you. Business from the public is for persons wishing to address the council. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes unless extended by the mayor. Council should have hold their comments until business from the council. All written material has been forwarded to the councilors and entered into the public record. Instructions for getting copies of the public record is on the city website under business from the public. No one submitted materials for the record. 2 people have signed up to speak. First is Susan Leonard of Albany. So Susan, please address the council at your convenience. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and councilors, thank you for this opportunity. I listened to the City Council's work session on Monday afternoon about policing in the downtown area. I am concerned about a statement that was made by one of the councilors that was not countered or questioned by anyone during the meeting. Councilor Novak stated that she thought the wording in the ordinance being discussed should be changed from convictions to arrests. This suggests the dangerous idea that being arrested is equal to being convicted. The Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution states that no citizen shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of the law. The Sixth Amendment guarantees the right to a fair trial, which establishes the principle of innocent until proven guilty, stating that an arrest is equal to the proof that a crime has been committed runs counter to this sacred and fundamental doctrine of our country and belies a position of privilege that doesn't account for the fact that justice is not fairly given to all in our society. What if one of you was arrested for a crime you did not commit? Would you feel that your arrest was evidence enough to prove your guilt? I am not suggesting that the Albany Police Department purposefully or mistakenly makes wrongful arrests, but it isn't an impossibility that it could happen. I ask the council to choose your words carefully, as your words matter and become public record. I ask you to evaluate issues through the lens of an awareness of your own privilege and approach issues with compassion for those less privileged. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you very much, Mrs. Leonard. Next on the agenda, Bill Case. You can unmute yourself and identify yourself and tell us why you're here to speak. And you have 3 minutes. Bill? Mr. Case, please unmute yourself.
You can unmute on the phone by pressing *6 on your keypad.
Bill, you still there? Hope he didn't step away. Can you unmute him? Oh, there he goes.
Hello.
Bill, go ahead and identify yourself. Tell us why you're here to speak.
Okay. Yep, this is Bill Case. I'm calling on behalf of the Albany water intake area on the South Santiam River, right next to the North Santiam. I farm on the North Santiam, right by the water intake. And I'll go back real quick. The EPA wants me to take my dike out that I put in there in 2009. It's working great, and move it over 18 feet, and then only put the dike in the height of the field, and let all the dirt and chemicals wash into the Albany water intake. Now, John Lindsay's been down there before he died several times. And he said, if I move that dike over, that whole corner of the field, brush, timber, and everything is going to wash into the Albany intake and completely plug it. So it will not take any more water. And I've got letters from Sherry Springer, Sheriff John, Dave Reese, the city, he's a river engineer. And then I talked Shelley Bossart was wanting to get involved in it, Davis. And then maybe DeFazio, because we want to leave that dike where it's at and protect that whole corner. Sheriff Yon says those trees are going to kill somebody, and the EPA said we don't care, let them die. So I have agreed to, if we could leave that dike where it is, I've agreed to go down and put riprap in front of all those trees in the whole corner of that field. I have some riprap available, and I would dike it at my cost, and I would go all the way around and protect that whole corner in the North Sandy Am, so it will not go into the south and plug off the Albany water intake. This could be a complete disaster for Albany's water. And I've heard it from everybody, and I've talked to Alex about it a little bit, but the guy that's been down there was Sheriff Yon and John before he died. And he said, you need to do something. And Dave Reese said, if I move that dike over, then it isn't going to do any good. There's no use to put any rock in there because it's not going to work. So if I can leave that dike where it's at, it's working great. It's worked ever since 2009.
So Bill,
and U.S. Fish. Yeah.
Bill, I'm going to extend your time. City Attorney, do you have any questions for Mr. Case?
No, Mayor, I don't have any questions for Mr. Case. I've spoken to Mr. Case on the phone about this already. I believe he's spoken to the city manager as well, so I don't have any questions of him.
Okay. So Peter, do you have any comments?
No, I don't.
Hello?
We're talking. Give me a second.
Yeah, I don't have any additional comments either. And I don't know if you had wanted to pick this up again at the end of the meeting when you got business from the council, but.
So Bill, we're going to address this. Questions by the council will be during business from the council. Can you hang on for a few more minutes?
I can hang on, yeah.
Okay, so go ahead and mute. We're going to move on and we'll come back to this, okay? Thank you. Okay, so we heard from Mr. Case. So we have a second reading of an ordinance, comprehensive plan map and zoning map amendment, CP 01-21/Zebra Charlie 01-21, and Scott White is going to speak to us. The first reading took place in previous meeting. The second reading is automatic. Sean Kidd reads the ordinance.
Yep. And so I'll go ahead and read it. It's automatic. An ordinance amending ordinance number 4836, which adopted the City of Albany Comprehensive Plan Map, and amending ordinance number 4441, which adopted the City of Albany Zoning Map, by amending the Albany Comprehensive Plan and Zoning Map and adopting findings for the properties located at Lynn County Assessor's Map number 11S-03W-17BD, tax lot 3101 and 3200.
I move for the adoption of the ordinance.
Well,
Second.
I gotta ask if the staff has a comment.
Oh,
Counselor.
Yep.
Okay, staff, you have something for us?
Mayor, they shouldn't in this case. This is just an automatic second reading. We had already discussed it in the first meeting. He might have something extra to put, but it was, I don't know that he'll have anything additionally tonight.
My city clerk gave me a script. I'm following it.
No, okay.
What Mary says.
Yep.
Required.
Mary is the boss, so yes.
If staff has nothing to add, you can go ahead and move on to the vote.
Okay. So would a council like to make a motion? Go ahead, Councilor Johnson.
I move for the adoption of the ordinance.
I'll second it again.
Okay.
So can we have some discussion before we vote?
We discussed it at length. This is our second reading, automatic. So if you have any
I
discussion?
think this is the time that we have discussion.
Yeah, go ahead and have your discussion. Let's talk.
Yeah, and did we get any comments from the public about this?
No, Mary,
particular
there
ordinance?
was none.
Okay. Well, I have no further comment.
All right, thank you so much, Councilor Olson. And so let's call so all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Hearing none. Motion, oh, we need a roll call vote.
Well, it sounds like the vote was 6-0, so we
Yeah.
don't need a roll call. Thank you.
Okay, your script is wrong again. So let's. Okay, so next is
Go off script.
first reading of ordinance, city services fee methodology. Will be Peter Schultzen, Sean Kidd, and Jenny Yeager on page 87 to 89. Does the staff have a report?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just very briefly, good evening. You've adopted a balanced budget this evening, and for that, we're very grateful. The budget contains many reductions in services, but it is balanced. The current biennium ends on the 30th of this month. It's only 3 weeks away. So again, I'm grateful that you've adopted this budget. The city services fee is now in front of you. And although we've tried to communicate extensively about the fee and the factors that have created a need for it, there remain many questions and many concerns. For over 2 years, we've been preparing for how we're going to meet the next biennium, and you've been there every step of the way, many of you. You have an ordinance and 2 resolutions in front of you that would implement that fee, set the rate, and implement a low-income assistance program. Though that program will be upgraded and expanded over the next 6 months. I know our public has many concerns, and we're happy to address them and answer your questions.
Council?
Move to have the ordinance spread the first time in title only.
A second?
Actually, that does not require a motion. Yet the first reading is automatic, so Sean can go ahead and read the title,
Okay.
the ordinance in title only.
All right. An ordinance creating chapter 3.12 city services fee of the Albany Municipal Code and declaring an emergency.
Okay.
I would move for the second reading of the ordinance.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed?
No.
Yeah, I'm opposed too. I think while I'm in favor of this ordinance, I think we need to let the public have another chance. It seems that many people have finally awakened to the fact that we're doing this, and I think we ought to give them a chance to comment further. So,
May I do a roll call vote, please?
Let's do a roll call. Thank you, Mary.
The motion was to have the ordinance read a second time in title only. Olson,
no.
Novak,
No.
Bartholomew,
No.
Kopsinski,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
It only took 1 no in order for that to be required to come back to the next meeting, but I took the roll call vote just for the record. So that item will come back to the next council meeting for an automatic second read.
Thank you very much.
And Madam Clerk and Mayor, I believe the next 2 resolutions then should be continued to the next meeting because they are
Associated.
related.
Right.
Good.
Okay, so so thank you very much, Sean. So thank you, council, for voting. We're gonna move to the grant. Where's that? Yep, there we go. It's the applying for the HB 2001 plan grant. Matt Rutgers is going to speak for us, can't speak to us. Council, this supplemental agenda included staff report and the resolution for this item. Staff does not have additional comments for this. Matt, you want to speak to us before we get started?
I don't have a whole lot to add other than what's in the memo. Here to answer any questions that anybody has.
I don't hear any discussion, so thank you very much, Matthew, for being available to us. So we have a motion.
Move that we approve the resolution in support of a grant application of the Department of Land Conservation and Development, DLCD, for House Bill 2001 compliance and for preparation of a housing implementation plan, HIP.
Thank you very much, Councilor Kopsinski. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Hearing none. Motion is approved, Passes.
Thank you.
Okay, number item 8, approval of sole source.
Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
I somewhat agree with skipping over item 7. I guess it's 7B, allowing low-income assistance for the city service fee. I
7B,
think
the council.
I'd like to discuss that a little bit before we come back to the second reading of the ordinance.
Yes, so 7B is the House Bill 2001 grant.
7C.
Well, I'm thinking
7C.
I don't have a 7C.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
it
thinking
doesn't,
on page 95.
It's not spaced apart on the agenda cover sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not there yet?
We are there. We're past it.
Well, yeah, okay.
Where do you see?
Well, I'll bring that up then at the end.
Right there, I see it. So the numbering is off. I got A, B, it skips completely. So it's A, and then it skips all the way down to B, establishing a low-income assistance program.
yeah, it's incorrect on your script, Mayor.
Okay. So I'm sorry about that, Councilor Olson. You want to address that now, or do you want to wait? Should that wait?
I would like to discuss the qualification criteria for qualifying for that part of the ordinance.
It's fine to do it now, Mayor. If we can do it now or wait till the end, whatever.
Just go and do it now. Get it out the way.
Yeah. And the criteria that are listed are one, low income and a senior citizen. And I think that's great. And the second is low income and disabled. And my question is, how about a person that just plain has low enough income that he's on the razor's edge of losing his house? Shouldn't we give him some kind of a break?
Or her.
Or them.
Or them, yeah. So give me just a second, Councilor Olson. City Manager would like to have a comment.
Thank you, Mayor. If Councilor Olson and the rest of you will remember, when the last time we talked about this, we talked about a phase 1 and a phase 2 of a low-income assistance program. What Councilor Olson is reading are the criteria that currently exist for assistance in our water utility. And the quickest way for us to implement a basic low-income assistance program is to join in with those criteria. In the end, what we would like to do is broaden and upgrade the program so that it does exactly what you just said, that it doesn't, and I use this word advisedly, discriminate between low-income people who are either senior citizens or who are disabled. That if you meet the criteria at a certain level of the median income, that you would be eligible for assistance. And again, we're partnering with, or we're continuing our partnership with Community Services Consortium to work out those details to make that second phase of that program work. When I made my comments, that's what I was talking about, that within the next 6 months, we're planning to upgrade and improve or broaden that program.
That's the way I took it.
So it will qualify for a person who is just low income.
Correct.
But is able-bodied and not a senior citizen.
Correct.
Is that the objective?
That's correct.
Okay, well, I just wanted to make sure that was the case.
Thank you very much, Councilor Olson. And I apologize for skipping that.
I'm sorry I broke in on you, but I wanted to make sure we didn't.
That's okay. I'm glad you caught it for us. Thank you very much.
Still doing that.
So we did apply. We did take care of the House Bill 2001 plan grant. That's passed. And so the next agenda item is approving of sole source procurement of Apex training equipment and software. And Chief Police Marsha Harden is going to speak to us. So Chief, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and councilors. You have two separate requests in front of you. I can answer any questions you have, but the need for both is laid out fairly well in the memo. Both are very much needed at this time for the department. I'm happy to answer any questions about 8A if anybody has one.
8.
I only had a question about improving efficiencies. Is it going to be very helpful to the staff?
Absolutely. Right now, any live training involves overtime and planning. This device will allow us to, we'll set it up in the community room. And officers at the beginning of their shift or anywhere in their shift can go in there with a trainer and run through simulations, which the huge benefit to us is it actually allows them to demonstrate in as real way as possible some of the de-escalation and decision-making skills when it comes to people we interact with.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Any other? I wish my mother would have had something like this when she was in the 70s.
I will certainly invite you all down for a demonstration. It's pretty
Cool.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see it.
So some of us can be the demonstrator or the demonstratee.
O and E.
Right. So do you want to vote on both of those, Counselor, or do you want to go ahead and do the second one now and vote on both at the same time?
I think it'd be,
In this particular case, it might be best to do them separately because they deal with two different
Entities. Okay.
purchases.
Thank you. So we have, is there a motion on the Chief's first approving the sole source procurement of Apex training equipment and software?
I move we approve the resolution of the Albany City Council acting as the local contract review board awarding a sole source contract to GovRed Technology, Inc. to procure Apex Officer Simulator trading equipment and software.
Seconded.
There's a second. All those in favor, say, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes, I believe 6-0, City Clerk. Next one's approving the sole source procurement of WaterGuard Video 4RE interview room camera system. Chief?
Thank you again. Thank you for the approval on the first one. This is actually an expansion of an existing product we have. Our body cameras and our in-car video is through the company called WatchGuard. When we moved over to the new building back in 2017, we brought old equipment with us. You've heard this story before where we were trying to save money back then. This equipment is now failing. By expanding and sticking with the WatchGuard company, it actually is more efficient. We already have their systems on board with our system. We will only need one cloud-based storage. And when it comes to our evidence or our interview rooms, this is where we interview suspects and victims of crimes. And so having really good quality recordings is essential to criminal cases. So I'm asking that we be allowed to expand this contract with WatchGuard.
Council? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a
You have to
second?
read it. I don't have it in front of me.
I'd second it.
Second it. All those in favor say aye.
aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. I hear no opposed. Mary, the City Clerk, the motion passes.
Thank you.
So thank you, Chief, for coming to us this evening.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Okay, next up is we did that already, approval of the adoption of the consent calendar. Council,
Move to adopt.
is there a second?
Second,
Second.
That's 7 seconds. Thank you very much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. None opposed. Motion passes. We have a staff report.
I'm assuming we're going to send letters of thanks to the,
Yes. They've already,
those
we
who
already
had to
done
resign.
at the office, at the City Hall.
Thank you.
Great.
So access to parking, item 10 is staff report, access to parking for 1207 North 9th Avenue Southeast. Ron Iris is going to speak to us about that on pages 120 to 128 in your packet.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So we spoke about this issue briefly several months ago. It's a situation where the city has a sliver of leftover property on the west side of Oak Street, 29th and Pacific. And it's a piece of land that's left over. We participated in the extension of that road. It varies in width from about 10 feet at the north end to maybe 15 feet at the south end. It's pretty good for growing weeds, not much else. For the city, it's a maintenance problem. We only ended up with it because it's a leftover piece of land from what we needed to build the road. The property just west of this is 1207 9th Avenue. It's an old radio station site, maybe familiar with it. The building has not been used for several years. It's begun to fall into disrepair. The owner is interested in rehabilitating it, coming in with a new land use approval, and improving the building. One of the obstacles they're facing is trying to make the parking lot. There's an aerial photo, attachment A to this item, page 122, I believe, of the report, that shows what the site looks like now. It's a very small parking lot, rectangular in area. See on the photo, there's 2 cars there. We would have put a 3rd car in that parking lot. The only way they could get out would be to back onto the highway system. And that's a problem if the site needs to go through the land use decision. They can't design a parking lot that would meet our city code or even come close to it. So staff has been working with the owner of that property to try to find a way to make it work. One of the concepts we came up with was to use a sliver of land between 1207 9th and Oak Avenue and incorporate it essentially into 1207's parking lot. In order for him to do that, and be able to get lending money from him, he needs to have permanent access to that strip. He either needs an easement for the city or he needs to buy it. And that's kind of where we left the last presentation to council, was where you were receptive to the idea. Your direction to staff at that point was to negotiate with the property owner, come back to council with a proposal, and if you like it, set a public hearing. So that's kind of what we're looking at tonight. Whether or not you're ready to set that public hearing, if you like the options. So the options would be that the area in question is about just under 1,500 square feet. When the city buys easement from a private property owner, traditionally we offer 25% of the tax assessor value of that land. So we offer 25% of what it's worth. So our initial conversation with the owner of 1207 was that they would pay the city 25% of what the assessed land value of that sliver was. In return, the city would grant an easement. That's one option. The other option would be, if you didn't like the idea of the easement, you wanted to get rid of the property altogether, just transfer it to private ownership, you could choose to sell that sliver to the property owner. I don't know if they would pay more than the 25% or not. I don't know. They haven't expressed any interest in that. But you may think that it's in your interest to do that just to get it on the city's taxes. So if you like either of those options, you would direct staff to set a public hearing for the date we have is July 14th. And you would give us some direction about which direction you wanted to go, easement versus land transfer. We would set the public hearing up that way. We make a formal decision on the. Not all. I'll stop and take questions.
Council, any questions?
Yes, sir.
Councilor Novak first, then Councilor Bessie Johnson. However, before you ladies start, I believe I know the owner of this property. And so I just want to disclose that I've known him for several years. He's an insurance agent like I am. So we have crossed paths and referred customers to each other, just so you know and aware. So Councilor Novak.
Thank you. I have a question in that I was struggling to hear Mr. Irish, and at the end he said easement or, and I didn't catch the word. So if someone could help me, please. The options are easement or.
Speak up. The options are sell the owner an easement for the strip of land versus sell the owner the strip of land, but they own it. Into their parcel. If you transfer only the easement, the city retains ownership, doesn't go onto the tax rolls. You sell the sliver, fee title, it gets absorbed into the property, goes back on the tax.
Okay, and that would give him more opportunity to make use of the property if he owned the current, that sliver of land, correct?
His options are similar in both cases.
Oh.
If you may have a few more options down the road if he owns the parcel, he could perhaps move the building location without worrying about a setback. But for the improvements he's looking at right now, they're essentially equivalent.
They're essentially, I'm sorry.
Equivalent for what he wants to do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Novak. Thank you, Ron. Councilor Smith.
Anything we can do to move this property along and get it improved would be a step in the right direction. It has been a code enforcement issue for years, ever since it was abandoned. I know that the owner has had a very difficult time trying to sort out what to do with it, in part because of this orphan strip of land. I think we already have significant city resources invested in it in terms of staff time, trying to solve the problem and trying to keep the place cleaned up. So whatever we can do to move forward and make this piece of property and get it into the hands of somebody who can love it and take care of it, let's do that.
Councilor
I have
thank you, Councilor Smith. Councilor Olson was first, and then Councilor Kopczynski.
Does the owner have any preferences as to either of those alternatives?
They've indicated that they would find either alternative acceptable.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilor Kopczynski.
Well, not being totally altruistic, then I would suggest that we move it forward to offer him to purchase that sliver of land for a minimal amount. At least it'll get it back onto the tax rolls.
Thank you, Councilor Kopczynski. Councilor Johnson.
Yes, I agree that anything we can do to get the property moving in the right direction is great. I mean, it was a great home of a great radio station when I first moved here, but it's been a long time. And, you know, we can't maintain the weeds anyway. And like Ron says, that's all it's good for. So let's just go ahead and sell it and let the owner have the opportunity to do something with it. So I would be in favor of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Anyone else? Councilor Smith, you have more comments? No. So what you used to vote on this, or what would you like to do? Just give direction to offer to sale?
Offer for sale.
So I got.
You need a motion to set a public hearing date for the 14th, contingent on for purposes of sale of property.
So council.
So moved.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion passes. Mr. Irish, go forth and get it done.
I'll try. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So business from the council. First on my screen is Councilor Johnson.
Oh, okay. Let me get back to my page here. I think we're bringing that one item, the service fees, back for on the 21st. Is that correct?
That'll be 23rd.
Okay. I'm hoping I'm going to be out of town for a while. I'm thinking I'll be back for it, but if not, I will do it virtually. And my second item is the lady I talked to on the phone today was, I mean, you know, she was concerned. She says, you know, my utility bill, you know, keeps going up and up and up. And I wondered if the city has ever considered a program kind of like Pacific Power does with the equal monthly payments. You know, I don't know if that's possible or not, but I think some people might, you know, it might help people. I mean, it does. I do it at Pacific Power because I know exactly what I pay every month. And there's no surprises, especially when you have, you know, summer watering and stuff. So it's just a question for staff.
Go ahead, Peter.
And Councilor Johnson, I assume you're talking about smoothing out the payments across the 12-month period. Is that correct?
Exactly right. They take like a 3 or 4 month period, they average it out, and then that's what you pay all year. And then at the end, if you have up or down, they include that in the next year. So yeah, I mean,
right.
It's an
That's
idea.
how we bill for sewer.
very magically, Chris Bailey has appeared. I think she might be.
Oh, go Chris.
Hello, Counselor Johnson, still here.
Okay.
So, as Counselor Smith indicated, the sewer bills are already sort of structured that way for residential customers. They're based on your winter average of water. It creates your sewer bill, which recalculated every summer. I think with water, it's a little more challenging because people's water usage can vary quite dramatically between the seasons. So I don't think that we've looked at it for water. I will say though that I think it was mentioned earlier, we are going to do a comprehensive look at low income assistance programs. And so we can definitely add that to our list of things to talk about and see. I'm not sure if it would work, but we can put it on the list.
I appreciate that because, I know it is, everyone thinks that we have the highest water bills, ever, and they don't realize that I told the lady, I said, other cities are catching up 2 hours, even passing us because they have to do new water plants too. So I says, it's not that we're overcharging, it's just kind of the realistic world, I guess. But anyway, I'd appreciate it looking into that. Thank you.
Sure.
And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. I greatly appreciate that. Councilor Kopsinski, you're next up on the screen.
Nothing on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor, thank you, Ray. Councilor Kopsinski, Councilor Smith.
Is it acceptable to talk about the city services fee for a moment?
It's your time.
Okay. I had hoped that matter would be discussed more thoroughly this evening and that we could come to some sort of a decision because we're coming up towards the end of the fiscal year, the end of the biennium. We do, as everyone has pointed out, and we're well aware, we have adopted a balanced budget for the next biennium tonight. The budget includes cuts that take into account the $2.5 million per year gap that we were facing. So one way or another, we have a balanced budget and can move forward. We also have the city services fee to consider as a way to help close that gap in the future. This might not be the time to do that, but it would be nice to have that architecture in place. The architecture, the car. We don't need to fill the tank is what I'm saying. I'm suggesting this as an option for the council to consider. We could consider adopting the implementation of the fee at the next meeting in June and adopting the low income assistance resolution to go with that, but set the rates for the fee at 0 for this biennium and see what happens. Things may change in that time. We may have growth that will increase our income. We may have a change in the economy, up or down. I expect it to go up. That may improve things in general. I don't know, but I'm putting that out as an option for people to consider during the next 2 weeks.
Thank you very much for your insightful comments, Councilor Smith.
You're welcome.
Councilor Novak.
Thank you. Just to sort of piggyback on that and make sure I understood you correctly, you had said that if we were to set it at 0 for this biennium, are you referring to the biennium that starts then on July 1st?
Correct.
Okay, that's something that I will give some serious thought to. I appreciate everyone's patience with all my questions, especially with regard to the budget and the way budgeting works. I think that if legislative change is needed, I may well pursue that because I would like to see our budget simplified. I would like our budget to be something that the average citizen of Albany, much less the average council member, could actually understand. I was just looking at more pages again over these last few days, and I'll just pull out one page that struck me because
It genuinely did. And I'm sure if I were to look through every single page with my yellow highlighter, I would be struck as well. I saw on multiple pages credit card fees, and forgive me, I know, Jean, I should have brought this to you, but there's a laundry service charge on our library page. And that struck me. Laundry service. And this is for the library budget. There are pages where there's money marked for city manager's office and mayor and council that I don't understand why there's mayor and council money on the library page. There's just an awful lot that I don't understand. And it's one thing knowing how I am with numbers and complicated budgets in general, but when people who I know or come to know who have years of experience and they specialize in this, and they tell me that this is not easy to understand. This is very complex. And again, with due respect for all of the hard work that goes into it, please know that I respect that. My point is that by Oregon law, what I learned in my class that thoroughly got drummed into my head is by Oregon law, these budgets for our city are required to be transparent and easy to understand. No one that I have met is looking through this and agreeing that this is transparent and easy to understand. Everyone is scratching their heads and going, I don't get it. I don't understand. I don't understand the columns. I don't understand. So I just feel like I have a goal in the future to increase my own understanding and to see what I can do to make it so that on the next biennium, if we do bienniums, and that's another issue that I have, because it is, we've talked about this before, comparing 2 years to 1 year, and maybe it'll be easier when we have an actual biennium to compare another biennium to. But to me, more straightforward is going year by year. That's just my own personal opinion. But one of my goals, as long as I am serving on this council, is going to be to see that our citizens and our council members will have a budget put before them that hopefully will be less than hundreds of pages in length, that they can understand. I think we can simplify, and I think that we can find, there are things we can do. There's so many wonderful ideas that have been put forth by our fellow citizens to us, and I'd like to see those things considered. I think we can make Albany an even better place to live without increasing fees and taxes, and without threat of loss to our services, to our first responders, to the people who are working here alongside us, both the public and private sector together. I just want to see, things made easier. I want to see it made more clear and more public involvement. And I'd like to see the people that I appoint to a budget committee to have some input. So whatever that takes, that's going to be one of my goals, for the record. And thank you again for hearing me out.
Thank you, Councilor Novak. So I saw Councilor Shopczynski first. Would you mind if I let the city manager jump in before you go?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to address a couple of things that Councilor Novak brought up. They are very noble goals of hers, and we actually share them. But you'll have to remember that one of the reasons you have a professional management staff is because it is not a simple budget. It's not a simple operation. It's an operation of 440 people with a wide variety of functions. So it is about as simple as it can get. Staff continue to try to make it simpler, but you're not going to get it much simpler than it is. There are some improvements that can be made. We brought up, I think, in this go around, putting line item numbers so that people could refer to specific line items a little bit easier. But you'll also have to remember that state law is what requires much of how our budget looks, as well as how the budget committee operates. So, and I appreciate Councilor Novak's, the confusion about how a budget committee member is not like a tree commission member, in that, they don't meet on their own, and there is the 14 of them. And with respect to the biennial budget, you as a council and your predecessors thought long and hard about it. A biennial budget forces us to think in the long term. and that's a good thing. It would not be good to yield to the temptation to try to cover your eyes and not look at the future. So a biennial budget is a good thing, and I really hope that, as Councilor Novak pointed out, that when you have two biennia to compare, it'll become a lot simpler and easier to make the comparison. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. Councilor Novak, Councilor Kopczynski.
Yes, this is a comment to Councilor Smith's idea of $0 for the initial year of the biennium. Interesting in concept, but that does automatically then presuppose that the first year of the budget, we will have the cuts in public safety for the first year. I don't believe that the community would go along with that, which is why I'm very strongly in favor of doing the city services fee the way it is. We've been talking about this for a couple of years. We've got the vehicle ready to make it happen. I'm real strongly in favor of passing it at the second go around. That said, I will not be here. I will be somewhere around in the United States on vacation, and I will do my dangest to be in touch via virtual to be here when that final vote comes down. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Olson was next up.
Yes, with respect to Councilor Novak's comments, my member of the Budget Committee was disappointed that we didn't have more discussion of various parts of the budget. And he was told that, well, the council doesn't adopt it until along in June sometime. And that seems like a long time. Well, here we are, we're now in June, and we never did have those opportunities to have more discussion. So I would like to see some mechanism, and perhaps it's my fault that I didn't ask more questions, and I didn't ask him to ask more questions. But some questions have come up about what happens between now and 2 years from now if our fiscal situation changes someplace. And I have told them, and I hope I'm right, that we can reopen discussions of that part of the budget and perhaps change that part of it. So I hope I'm right on that. The other thing I wanted to say was that Emery and Sons from, I think they're from Silverton, were down here and doing a pipe bursting installation of a sewer pipe. And it was fun watching that. And thank heavens, one, for that technology. And two, I really appreciate our city doing that kind of repair for neighborhoods where I can see it would be a tremendously expensive process, as deep as our sewers are in this part of town. And I want to say thank you to our staff for continuing to not only subsidize, but pay for that service to my constituents.
Thank you, Councilor Olson. Thank you very much for that. Councilor, I would like to see that pipe bursting. So next time you hear of it, let me know, please.
Well, boy, it's really a noisy operation. They hammer through a head about 9 inches in diameter, and there's a lot of hammering going on. But if there is another one, I'll give you a call.
Please do. Thank you. Councilor Bartholomew.
Thank you, Mayor. I tended to have my votes so that we could have more discussion about the city services, because I was concerned about the low income aspect, and City Manager Troutson did answer that question for me. So I'm glad that that was, because I was wondering how we were going to address those issues. So that is all that I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you. So I do thank you very much, Councilor Bartholomew. I do have a question for Peter. We do have an opportunity for a supplemental budget, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so when would that be? So the council's aware of that.
Well, I would invite Gina to speak here. There's no set time for a supplemental budget, but there are certain things that trigger the need for a supplemental budget. And Gina, you want to address those?
So we can make changes throughout the year as they come up. We can do some of those just as a regular council meeting. If there are more than changes that equal more than 10% of a fund, then we would have to go through the supplemental budget process. There are also some other things, if we were going to be, depending on what we're changing, could cause us to choose a different method for how we're going to do it, but we can certainly do it anytime. We just may have to notice it.
All right, thank you very much for that. So I've only got 7 things tonight. So I received an email from a young man, a family that moved here from California, requesting our ordinance for food trucks. So I sent them a copy of it, and they're going to put this food truck in Albany. They really like what they saw. So hats off to the team that put that together. Chris Schindel for leading that effort. So our food truck ordinance was appreciated from somebody that moved here from California. His family moved up. He's going to Oregon State, but the family moved up here, and they're going to build put some food trucks out. So they like the guidance. The carousel, there's an animal party on the 12th. Yin Sang is going to be, Ray could probably talk more to this than I can, but I have had the pleasure of buying tokens every month and passing them out to little kids around town with their parents and grandparents, and to watch these young eyes light up when you hand them 2 tokens to take their mother on the date to the carousel, take their grandmother on the date to the carousel. It is just an absolute blessing, and it makes my heart just leap. So if you ever get a chance, Ray will tell you when to pick them up. We'll pick up some tokens. And every time you see a little child or a young person, give them a token, invite them to the carousel, because when they go down to the carousel, they're going to walk by our stores and our restaurants. And 9 times out of 10, people are going to stop and check out the Natty Dresser or one of the restaurants downtown and enjoy being downtown in Albany. The third thing is we had 2 high schools graduate hundreds of kids from high school. And it was an absolute joy to see those children on the football field getting their diplomas in person. Yes, they were spaced, but it was just nice to see them after what they went through last year, and see them afterwards at restaurants with their gowns on and caps and leis. It was Albany it was a wonderful experience to see as the mayor, as a citizen of Albany, and a father that graduated 2 kids from West Albany High School. Bill Case, are you still on the line? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Bill Case to write up a letter and send it to us so we can make sure we get it in front of us.
Did he give up?
He's not here.
Sure.
Yeah, we went a little long on other things we're covering. So Bill Case has been talking to me about, this issue for a while. I've engaged the city attorney in those discussions. And so he has concerns, and he asked me to write a letter, and I can't sign a letter for the city council without your permission. And so Sean Kidd gave me guidance, and I followed that guidance. And so he's reached out to me again. That's why he came tonight to speak. Go ahead, Peter.
Yes, watching people's faces during Mr. Case's phone call, it looked like he may have raised a few concerns and questions. And Chris Bailey is here and ready to answer any that you might have.
So thank you. Anybody have questions for Director Bailey?
I'd like to hear what she has to say about the situation.
Well,
Sure.
Chris,
Um,
go ahead.
No, go ahead, Sean.
No, I was going to say, I don't know that they got a whole lot of what Mr. Case was trying to convey tonight. And the mayor's asking that Mr. Case provide the council with a letter. I imagine that letter is going to detail a lot of stuff that the council is going to have questions about that she'll be able to answer at that time. And I just didn't know if we may be doing it twice. I just don't think Mr. Case got everything out he wanted to say tonight. And so once that letter comes in, it might be easier for you to respond. But I'm not trying to cut you off. So I was just.
No, so yes, he does call me on a regular basis about this issue.
Right.
When I get the letter, I'll make sure that the staff gets it, and I'll make sure that the councilors get it. We'll send it to the city clerk, and then she can get it out to everyone.
And then I think the staff, after the council has a chance to digest that letter, they're probably going to have some questions for Director Bailey. So. at that time.
Is that fair, council?
My question is it a city issue or is it a county issue?
It sounds like it's both from what I understand from him.
The question I have is, would this really clog up the intake? I
Sure.
believe this isn't even close to our intake, is it?
Well, that's why I need the letter, because I need to
Or
understand.
is it? I don't know.
So if I could, Mayor, if I could just say,
Please.
and I'm happy to talk again after you see Mr. Case's letter. We received letters from him. I think it's been going on for more than a year. He was found in violation of the Clean Water Act by the EPA, and there was a federal process that resulted in penalties and actions that he is compelled to take, and he is objecting to those. It revolves around he, according to the EPA, illegally filled into the river on the edge of his property. Mr. Case's contention is that he has to remove his dike or revetment or whatever you want to call it, and that sediment will wash down and plug the intake. So the short answer is the raw water intake for the AM plant was designed in a place that regularly receives sediment. That river carries a lot of sediment naturally. And it has a system to burst the sediment off the grate. We send divers down every year to clean the grate. So the allegation that it will thoroughly plug the intake is probably not correct. There's no engineering report or other analysis that supports that assertion. That intake gets a lot of sediment on it, and we deal with it. And it's just part of the location of the intake. So that's a short answer to that part of it. But we can have more discussion once you see his full letter.
Thank you, Director Bailey. I'll make sure you get a copy of the letter.
Sure.
Councilor Bartholomew.
My only question was, is it in our jurisdiction? Is it something that we have jurisdiction over? Because I did read about this issue and understood it to be an EPA issue. So I just was.
It is. It was a federal action that was filed against him, and he's looking for letters of support, I think, in appealing or somehow trying to not do what he's been compelled to do. And as far as where it's located, his farm is in, I think it straddles sort of Lynn County and Marion County, and it is just upstream of the confluence of the north and south, which is our intake is just downstream of the confluence. So hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Okay, so go ahead, Councilor Olson. I have a couple more things. Go ahead.
Yeah, about how far away is our intake from his property? It's not very far, is it?
It's not very far. I'd have to look at a map and measure for you.
And is there a chance that there's a bunch of brush and stuff that we'd have to contend with if it broke loose and washed down, like he says?
There's
I think one of the main things that comes to mind is we've been sued by the water keepers for a really, I think, a ridiculous thing. And I'm wondering if this is kind of the same sort.
I can't answer the last question,
So,
but
Okay.
there's always a chance, Counselor. But I'll just say that our intake was engineered to deal with a river that carries a lot of sediment. So we don't have any concerns about it.
Okay.
So I'd like to reclaim my time and finish this up.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mayor.
The meeting after the meeting. And so I saw Al Severson, owner of the frame shop down at the barn yesterday. And he waxed absolutely poetic about the police department and the work that they did recovering his flag that was taken from in front of his property. And I want to say thank you to the chief and her staff for making that gentleman feel supported by the police department. So if she's still here, please let your team know that Al Severson at the frame shop really appreciates the work they've done for him. And then I've asked Julie Jackson to, during a work session, to invite us to the composting plant, our site where composting is going on. She did send us a survey to ask us what days would work for us. I think it was Kenzie had done that. So if you can, please respond to that. I personally would like to see it. If you can't make it, I totally understand. But I'd like to see that, you know, we can go maybe 3 at a time or something like that, so we don't have a quorum. But please respond to that survey. And other than that, thank you very much for attending tonight. And I'm gonna give the city manager his time. So city manager, your report is up.
Thanks, Mayor. And I have just one short thing for you, and that is to let you know that I'll be out of town on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of next week, back in Washington, D.C. And Chief Shane Wooten will be acting city manager for those 3 days.
So Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday?
That's correct.
Okay, perfect. Again, next meeting is June 21st, and that's the summer solstice. It's supposed to be the longest day of the year, so good luck with that. And then at 4 p.m. work session, and then Wednesday, June 23rd, at 6 p.m. for a regular meeting. And at this time, I'll call for adjournment, and you want to have a wonderful evening and enjoy your families and be safe tonight.
Thank you. Good
Good
night.
night,
Thank
everybody.
you. Good